Coconut Grove or Coral Gables? Brickell or Edgewater? The Roads or Pinecrest? I get some version of this question probably 3 times a week. And the honest answer is always the same. It depends on what you're actually optimizing for. Because these areas may look close together on a map, but they live completely different lives day to day. I have watched buyers fall in love with a neighborhood from a Zillow search. They moved down from New York, California, Chicago, or somewhere else. And they call me 6 months later wishing someone had walked them through the trade-offs first. Not because the neighborhood was bad. None of the 6 areas I'm about to cover are bad. Every single one of them can be somebody's dream address. But each one of them comes with a real trade-off that most buyers do not hear about until they are already living there. I'm Milton Andrade with Polaris Advisors at Compass. For the past 24 years, I have worked at these exact streets. So in this video, I'm walking you through 6 of the Miami areas buyers ask about the most. What draws people in? What catches them off guard after they move? And which type of buyer each area is actually built for. Because the goal is not to scare you away from any of these neighborhoods. The goal is to help you pick the right one before you spend real money in the wrong place. So let's get into it. Coconut Grove. Ask anyone why they want Coconut Grove and you'll usually hear the same 3 words. Trees, water, walkability. And honestly, that reputation is well earned. Coconut Grove is one of the oldest parts of Miami and the longest continually inhabited. It still feels like a village tucked under a canopy of old oak trees just a few minutes from the bay. You have independent coffee shops instead of only national chains, sailing clubs instead of beach clubs, bayfront parks, marinas, amazing restaurants, and a pace that feels slower than the rest of the country. For a lot of relocating buyers, this is exactly the picture of what they imagine Miami dumb rep. It's tropical, established, walkable, residential. But here's what catches people off guard. Coconut Grove is not one market. It is 5 or 6 markets stacked right on top of each other. The median home price may run around $2.5 million, but that number hides a lot. In Grove Center, the median can be closer to $1.9 million. 2 blocks over in Bird Grove East, the number can look completely different. Same neighborhood name on the map, completely different budget. So when a relocating buyer tells me they want to live in Coconut Grove, my first question is, which part of the Grove? Because that answer can change your budget by well over $1 million. The other thing buyers underestimate is the age of the housing stock. A lot of these homes were built decades ago, long before Florida tightened its wind and flood codes. That doesn't mean that they're bad homes, because honestly, they lasted. Some of the most beautiful homes in Miami are in the Grove. But insurance, roof age, impact windows, elevation, flood zone, and hurricane mitigation is going to matter here. And those costs usually do not show up when you are first scrolling through the listings. They show up after you're already under contract. There is also a misconception that because the Grove feels quiet and residential, that it's always calm. But on weekends, Coco Walk and the main highway corridor pull people in from all over the country. Parking on the narrow historic streets can get tight quickly. And buyers who work from home and expect total calm are sometimes surprised at how lively these blocks can get. Coconut Grove works really well for buyers who want walkable village life, tree canopy, character, bay access, and who understand they're paying a premium for scarcity. It works less well for someone who budgets off one median price they saw online and assumes the whole Grove's they said number. I have walked clients through Grove Isle and the Bird Streets and the quiet residential pockets more times than I can count. And the lesson is always the same. Know exactly which pocket you're buying into before you fall in love with the name. And once you cross out of the Grove into Coral Gables, the trade-off flips immediately. Coral Gables has the reputation of being Miami's most prestigious address. The banyan trees and the canopy, the Mediterranean architecture, historic plazas, the deed restrictions that keep the city looking the way it has for generations. But for many relocating buyers, Coral Gables feels like the safe choice. But here's the surprise. Right now, Coral Gables is actually one of the more buyer-friendly luxury markets in Miami-Dade. The median sale price is around $1.3 million. Homes have been taking longer to sell than they were a year ago. And that is not what most people expect from a prestige address. But in the current market, sellers who are overpriced are sitting, and buyers who understand the submarkets have more room to negotiate than they would have during the peak frenzy. The bigger lifestyle trade-off is the architectural review process. You want to repaint your house? Change your roof? Swap your fence? Make exterior changes? You may be going through the city's design review process first. Some buyers love that. They love knowing the character of the neighborhood is protected. They love that Coral Gables cannot easily be changed into something else. Other buyers especially investors, find it slower than they expected, especially if they're coming from a market where they're used to buying a house, hiring a contractor, and moving quickly. That review process traces back to how Coral Gables was designed in the 1920s. George Merrick planned it as a fully mapped out city, not just a subdivision. The entire look was part of the original vision. This is why Miracle Mile still feels different from a regular retail corridor. Buyers either love that it cannot be easily undone, or they get frustrated the first time they want to make a change. There's also a misconception that Coral Gables only attracts retirees and old money. In practice, I'm seeing more young professionals and lots of families priced out of Brickell high-rises buying smaller Gables bungalows near Coral Way. They are trading square footage for schools, neighborhood feel, and access to the Miracle Mile. Schools come up in almost every Coral Gables conversation I have with relocating families, and this is where buyers need to be careful. The top address does not automatically mean every school rating matches every family's expectations. Some rankings look strong, others are more mixed. So if schools are part of your decision, you need to check out the specific school zone before you commit to a house, not after. Coral Gables works well for buyers who want long-term stability, architectural consistency, and a neighborhood with a strong identity. It works less well for buyers who want to renovate quickly or want a truly car-optional lifestyle. Because if you really want urban walkability instead of tree-lined streets and a review board, that is a different neighborhood entirely. And it is the one everybody moving out here from the big city asks me about first. Before we go there, I want to pause for a second. You already have seen how much Coconut Grove can change from pocket to pocket, and how differently Coral Gables lives compared to the rest of Miami. That is exactly why I built the Miami Neighborhood Quiz. It is not meant to tell you where everyone else wants to live. It is meant to help you figure out which areas actually match your budget, commute tolerance, lifestyle, school needs, and long-term plan. So you can take the free Miami Neighborhood Quiz using the link in the description. It takes about 2 minutes. You answer a few quick questions about how you actually want to live, and it points you towards the areas that are most likely to fit you before you spend months chasing the wrong neighbor. Because picking the wrong pocket of Miami is not just inconvenient, it can cost you time, money, and a lot of frustration. Now, let's talk about Brickell. Brickell sells itself on one thing. You can live here without a car, or at least without needing your car for everything. Brickell Avenue has a walk score of 99 out of 100. That is a genuine walker's paradise. And for buyers coming from Manhattan, London, Chicago, or another dense city, that is rare to find anywhere in South Florida. You can walk restaurants, coffee shops, gyms, offices, Brickell City Center, the Metro Mover, the waterfront. For someone who wants an urban lifestyle in Miami, Brickell is usually the first place they look. But the number that actually decides whether Brickell works for you is not the walk score. It is the building's financials. And that is the part almost nobody asks enough questions about before making an offer. Since the Surfside building collapse, Florida changed its rules around structural integrity inspections and reserves for older condo buildings. Those changes were necessary, but they also changed the economics of owning in a condo building. When a building needs repairs, has weak reserves, or fails to plan correctly, owners can get hit with a special assessment. In Brickell, depending on the building's age and condition, those assessments can range from meaningful to painful. Sometimes $20,000, sometimes $50,000, sometimes over $100,000. And on top of that, HOA fees in Brickell often run from $800 to $1,500 a month. Again, it depends on the square footage of the property and the building itself. I had a client a few years back fall in love with a unit in one of the older Brickell towers. That kind of bay view that just sells itself in the first 30 seconds. Think about it. They got there first. They got the best, most wide views. And she assumed that because the building was pre-2000s and looked well maintained, that the reserves would be fine. But they were not. The board had deferred a major structural repair for years. And an assessment notice landed less than a year after she closed. That is the exact scenario that newer inspection and reserve laws are designed to prevent. And it is also why now I pull reserve studies and review building financials before a client writes an offer. There is also a misconception that newer buildings are automatically safe from this. They're not safe from this. Newer towers still have HOA fees that climb as amenities age. A beautiful lobby does not tell you what is sitting in the reserve account. And a great pool deck does not tell you whether the association has planned correctly for the next 10 years. I tell every buyer the same thing here. Buying a condo is like buying a car. You do not just look at the paint. You look under the hood. In Brickell, that means the reserves, the inspection reports, SIRS, Structural Integrity Reserve Stat, milestone compliance, insurance, pending assessments. Right now, Brickell has some of the most buyer-friendly condo conditions it has seen in years. Inventory is elevated, homes are sitting longer, price per square foot is softened, and that gives buyers leverage, but only if they know how to use it. Brickell works well for someone who wants urban, walkable living and is willing to do the homework on a specific building. It works poorly for anyone who buys based on the view and skips the financials. Always verify inspections and HOA details for any specific unit before you write an offer. In Brickell, that step is not optional. Now, Edgewater gets pitched as the value bayfront neighborhood, the up-and-coming alternative to Brickell without the Brickell price tag. And there is some truth to that. But here is the twist. Edgewater is not always the cheap one anymore. So the value neighborhood is not necessarily cheaper. It is just built differently. Edgewater led Greater Downtown in sales growth up 120% year over year in the first quarter of 2026. That sounds extremely strong. But underneath that number, the market is really split in two. Newer boutique buildings are holding value and selling faster. Older, larger, investor-heavy towers are sitting with much more inventory. Some are well past what you would consider a balanced market, and many units have already gone through price cuts. Part of what confuses buyers is Edgewater's history. It used to be a corridor of low-rise apartment buildings and light industrial lots. Then developers started stacking towers along the bay one at a time. That is why one block can feel completely different than next. Unlike Brickell, which has more uniform skyline and a more stylish urban pattern, Edgewater changes quickly from building to building. There is also a common misconception that Edgewater is basically a cheaper extension of Wynwood. It's not. They're actually quite different. Edgewater does not have Wynwood's street-level retail and nightlife right outside your lobby. What you're really buying in Edgewater is the view, it's the building, the access, and the future trajectory. Not necessarily a walkable neighborhood scene, and buyers who expect Wynwood energy downstairs are usually disappointed. For a relocation buyer, that means two towers on the same street can be two completely different buying experiences. One may be strong long-term play. The other one may look like a deal, but carry issues that make resale harder. Edgewater works well if you want bayfront views, newer construction, and access to the urban core. And if you're willing to do the research building by building. It's going to work poorly if you assume every Edgewater tower is priced the same way. Because right now, they're not even close. Now, the Rhodes gets described as Miami's best-kept secret. I agree. It's historic. It's walkable in parks. It's quiet. It's minutes from Brickell. But it doesn't feel like Brickell, and honestly, their reputation holds up. The Rhodes was laid out in the 1920s as a neighborhood built around pedestrians, not cars. The streets curve instead of running in a grid. The trees are mature. The homes have character. You can live in a single-family neighborhood and still be minutes from the financial district. For buyers who work in Brickell or downtown but do not want to live at a high-rise, that is a very compelling combination. What surprises buyers is how much the price swings from block to block, because the median home price hovers around $1.75 million, but homes can range from the low to mid $1 million range all the way into the $5 million range. That's not two different neighborhoods. It's the same neighborhood. A lot of the spread comes down to the housing stock. Most homes in the Rhodes were built between the 1920s and 1940s. Some are beautifully renovated. Others are still carrying decades of deferred maintenance. They had outdated plumbing, older electrical, roof issues, old windows to lousy windows. I closed a deal a couple years back on a fully renovated two-story home right in the heart of the Rhodes. And that kind of finished historic home commands a premium. But two doors down, an untouched original from the same era and on a similar lot, it can trade for a completely different number. Because that buyer is inheriting the renovation risk, or better yet, that developer. Buyers who go the renovation route also run into something they do not always expect: City of Miami permitting. Because many of these homes sit close to historic districts, guidelines, additions, and major exterior changes can get more scrutiny than a comparable renovation in a newer suburb. This can stretch projects that buyers assumed would take a few months, okay? It can take a year or more. It depends on what you're doing. But the upside is real too, because the Rhodes sits so close to Brickell's financial core. Several of my clients who work downtown have cut their commute down to single-digit minutes. I drive 7 minutes to the office, and that is something almost nowhere else at this price point in Miami can offer. The Rhodes works really well for buyers who want historic charm close to downtown and are comfortable either renovating or paying up for a finished home. It works less well for anyone expecting a consistent price per square foot across the neighborhood. Here, the number depends on the specific house. It's not just the zip code. Pinecrest. Now, Pinecrest is one that trips up almost every relocating buyer, and it has nothing to do with the schools or the lot sizes, because they really do deliver with schools and large lots. Pinecrest has typical home values around $1.8 million. Homes have been moving very quickly, because you get acre-plus lots, a canopy of oak and banyan trees, some of the highest rated public schools in the county. And on paper, it's exactly what a family relocating from up north pictures when they hear the word suburb. But here's what catches people off guard. Pinecrest doesn't always give you the shorter commute that most suburbs promise. The average commute time is around 27.6 minutes, slightly longer than a national average. And most residents are driving alone to get where they need to go. So you need to test the commute, not on a Sunday morning, at the actual time you will be driving, or use the Waze app and program it. It's very good. The second surprise is flood exposure. A significant share of Pinecrest properties carry flood risk over the next 30 years. Combined with the age of some estate homes, it can affect your monthly cost more than the listing price suggests. Pinecrest is not just governed like the rest of unincorporated Miami-Dade. It is its own incorporated village. It has its own building department, and code enforcement can run stricter than buyers expect, especially around tree removal. If you're buying an acre lot with the idea of tearing down and building your dream home, you need to budget extra time, not just extra construction costs. Pinecrest also does not price the performer. Two homes on the same street on the same size lot can be worth very different amounts depending on updates, elevation, condition, and how the seller priced it. Homes priced to current conditions are moving. Homes still priced off last year's headlines are sitting. This is exactly the kind of pricing work I have spent the last 24 years learning to read correctly, cycle after cycle. And it is one of the biggest reasons relocating families call me before they write an offer in Pinecrest specifically. Pinecrest works extremely well for buyers who want space, schools, privacy, and a true residential suburban lifestyle. It works less well for buyers who assume it's going to function like a traditional suburb with an easy commute to the city. With Pinecrest, the question is not only whether you love the house. The question is whether the location matches your actual weekday life. So here is the bigger takeaway. Every one of these 6 areas can be the right move for the right buyer. Coconut Grove can be incredible if you understand the micro markets. Coral Gables can be incredible if you value architectural control and long-term stability. Brickell can be incredible if you want walkability and you know how to analyze the building. Edgewater can be incredible if you pick the right tower and understand what the neighborhood is and is not. The roads can be incredible if you want historic charm, close to downtown, and understand the condition differences. Pinecrest can be incredible if you want space and schools and you are honest about the commute. But picking based on a map instead of the real trade-offs is exactly how people end up selling and moving again 2 years later. Getting the neighborhood wrong can run you tens of thousands of dollars in closing costs, or a daily lifestyle that simply does not match what you thought you were buying. So if you're thinking about relocating to Miami, take the Miami Neighborhood Quiz using the link in the description. And if you want to walk through your specific situation, call or text me directly at 954-629-9952. I'll help you figure out which of these areas actually fits your budget, your commute tolerance, and your long-term plan. The same way I do for relocating buyers who call me before instead of after they write an offer. I'm Milton Andrade with Polaris Advisory Compass, and I'll see you in the next video.